Hello, what's up, everybody? My name is Goon. Some on some other plane of existence, people call me Steve. Um, I am the owner of Wild Heart Esports. I am a perpetually tired gamer, and yeah, I've been playing HOTS for a long time, and somehow stumbled my way into CCL. Thankfully, I enjoy it, and have had the pleasure to work with these two fine gentlemen here, Lupus and Justin.
All right, let's go ahead with Lupus. Lupus, what about you?
I'm Lupus or Zach. Nobody calls me that on the internet though. And then currently I'm the tank player on Wild Heart's Academy team, and I've played in a bunch of other stuff, Tespa, Collegiate, all that kind of stuff.
Awesome. And last but not least, Justing.
Hi, I'm adjusting. I'm a tank for Wild Heart now for the CCL team, also known as Pit Kid, of course. Uh, but yeah, I've played HGC and stuff back in the day, and I'm a tanky boy.
Thank you.
Love it. So I'm just gonna give you guys in chat a little bit of rundown of what's gonna happen. Pretty much Goon, Lupus, and Justing are gonna take it from here, talk a bit about tanking, lead the conversation, and I'm here to kind of be the liaison between chat and them to answer and get your questions thrown out to them. So,
Yeah.
Goon, take it away, man. Let's hear what you guys have to
Yeah.
say.
Well, if you got any questions too, Jazzy, I mean,
Ooh.
at any point, just throw it in there or whatever. Um,
Absolutely.
uh, okay, so obviously, Wild Heart is known for its interesting draft style. And the meme is like, oh, what is a tank? Is this a tank? Blah blah blah, blah whatever. Let's just start with the fundamental question. In your eyes, what are some things? Um, what are some things you're looking for in heroes, or maybe even in your play style that would enable characters to be considered a tank? What are some things that a tank player and character should have or should be thinking about?
Uh, well, I think anything is a tank as long as it has initiation and can kind of. So I guess there's like two types of tanks. You can either have like a defensive tank like Joe that's just made for peeling, or like how ETC used to be with the big W's,
Mhm.
where you just be basically like only peeling. But the reason things like Maiev work as a tank is because you have, well, basically if you aren't going to play like a normal tank like Muradin, you need to have like Maiev has wave clear, which like you need to be getting like a draft advantage if you're not in some area, if you're not running a normal standard tank. So that's why Maiev works, is because she has engage with her E and her pull, and then her ultimates both have a lot of control, and then but she also contributes wave clear, which is like the advantage that you get from having that, because otherwise there's not a lot of wave clear on tanks. So it's like Johanna mostly.
True.
Yeah, I think it's just like more of a role filling kind of thing, more so. Like, what do you need to, like, depending on the hero, if it's tanky enough, you don't need it, or you don't need double support always. But like sometimes some heroes, if you're gonna make it a tank, you do. Just kind of depends what your comp needs. Like Justin said, if you need like more engage, you can go the Maev or something, or if and wave clear as well, or like if you want kind of like peeling, you can go like the Deathwing or Joe. Both bring wave clear as well,
Hmm.
stuff like that.
Okay. So I've heard some conversations around the Nexus about what a tank does, what it's supposed to do. Some people say that tanks, they're your main form of initiation. Some say they're meant for peeling. Some say they're not supposed to peel at all. And some say if they're not peeling, they're not a tank. What do you guys think? Is it entirely comp dependent? Do you have a specific? Yeah. What's your line of thought? Do you see tanks as one way, or do you think they're more flexible than that?
So I guess it kind of depends like what you want.
Mhm.
Something that I think I kind of the thing that kind of started me playing like the less orthodox tanks was we played in a tournament in, I don't remember what it was. It was like one of the clashes, and I came to the realization that all of the tanks, pretty much all the tanks' defensive ultimate options, were like the better ones. They were the go-to, and the other one was kind of like a troll thing. Like with like Tyrael, you have Sanctification, which is good, and then you had Judgment, which was like a meme. And it was pretty much the same with like every tank. Like Arthas had Syndragosa, which was good engage, but it's like a meme because you always have to go ghouls, and pretty much every tank is like that. So I realized how come things like Thrall, like Sundering, if a tank had Sundering, it would be just ridiculous engage. It would just be better than every single tank's engage. As an example, and even like Mages on Zul does the same thing. So I don't think tanks necessarily have to have engage, but I mean it definitely helps because like the main issue though is that like the tanks, you basically have to take the defensive ult on like all the standard tanks. So if you're doing that, then you're not actually like the main initiator, like the Thrall would be, or the like even like Hanzo Arrow is like a better engage than pretty much every tank ultimate.
Mhm.
So I don't think tanks necessarily have to be like the main engage.
So are you saying Murden's Haymaker is actually like probably the best ult in the game because it's peel and engage if you want it to be?
Yeah, I like Haymaker.
It's defensive, right?
Yeah,
Well,
on the academy team we play. At least I like to play pretty defensive tanks and just protect Apparition and let him carry the game. So, play like, even if I'm playing like a more engagey tank, Diablo, I'll play like W build a lot so I can just kind of stand there and be in the way and they can't kill me. Or I'll play like the Mei, just drop, if they go on him, drop my Blizzard and my E just on top of him, get him out of there. Stuff like that.
kind of using that line of thought there, that point you just brought up. How are you positioning yourself in relation to like your opponents or your allies? Are you mostly looking at your allies and positioning around them, or are you more focused on what the opponent is doing? How do you determine which style you're playing?
I think a lot of it comes down to team comp. So like ETC is a good example of where you have two different playstyles you can have like completely based on your team comp. So ETC is kind of out of the meta right now, but when he was meta, you basically had two styles. You had one where you take the boop cooldown reduction at 13, and you have like if you have the better double range, like so if you have like Hanzo, I don't know, like Hanzo Tychus or something like that against, I don't know, pretty much anything, you should be able to just like get value by just peeling basically exclusively, and you'll pretty much never slide in, and you're just playing super safe and defensively. But if you have like a Jaina Maiev or something, then the playstyle is completely different because you have to slide in and like one shot off of that. So then you're playing a lot more risky, I guess. So a lot of it just comes down to the team composition, for whether you're actually playing aggressive and like looking for engages, or if you're just playing back and like looking to poke. It's mostly just weighing like the pros and cons of your comp versus the enemy comp.
I agree. I like to when you play like defensive tanks, I think a lot of times you can kind of get away with, especially if you have like any other peel tool, you can get away with like using your teammates as bait a little bit and get pretty good counter engages. It's like the Mei thing I mentioned before. Like if they commit everything to get onto your backline and they can't get the kill right away, and if they all get stunned, they're just all gonna die.
That's kind of why Tank Uther works too. It's not so much a thing now because double support with Uther is better, but Tank Uther was mostly a thing because you would, like, I would let Zerg, if he's playing like Diva or something, if I'm playing Tank Uther, I'm not actually playing as the tank. I'm like, I'm letting someone else get engaged on. Like if they engage on me as the Uther, then we're doomed. So even though I'm like Tank Uther, unless their comp is really bad, I'm not actually like playing as tank. I'm like just turning other people into tanks.
It's like the same line of thought with like your the infamous Tank Stukov game.
Yeah,
Like, it didn't matter which one of you was playing it. Either if they were gonna walk up to, it's better for them to walk up to the Stukov and then have Buds save you than to have him walk up to Buds and have to try and save Buds.
Yeah, although Stukov actually is probably better than Uther if you're gonna try to play it like as the tank, because it's level 1 talent. The Ink is too OP that you actually can't focus the Stukov. It's kind of like the opposite for the Uther.
Could you walk up and hit him like with the truck?
Yeah, you just slap him.
Okay, so we're talking about the weird stuff for people getting I guess getting into tanking and things like that. Well, let's keep it simple for now. I don't want to start people throwing their games by picking tank Vala or something like that, right? What are some like just core fundamental tanks that you like to play with, that you feel like, okay, if I'm just gonna be playing a pickup game with some people, or maybe I've got a team of varying different skill levels, this is a tank that's generally gonna be okay, regardless of what the matchups might be. What are some of those tanks, if you have any?
Chow was asking if you're an aspiring tank player. They specifically wanted 5 of the best tanks to learn first, which I feel is like half of them anyway.
I mean, Johanna right now is definitely just like the best tank. I think Johanna and Mei do very similar things, but so Johanna, you could first pick Johanna, and there's really no counters to it. She's not really weak to percent damage, how like Diablo and Muradin are, for example. So, basically, Johanna is pretty much perfect as a tank right now because she has probably the best peel, just like one of the best peel out of all the tanks. You can't get deleted by like blow up the tank one-shot tank comps because she has her iron skin on her D, and then you have the choice of 2 different ultimates, so you can either play defensively with Blessed Shield and just peel with it, or play offensively with Falling Sword and play dive with her. She's basically just perfect in every way because pretty much none of the tanks have wave clear besides her. Her wave clear is the best. She's also just the safest of pretty much every tank because of her D, and then she has different playstyles with her alts that you can choose from. But I think the main thing with Johanna that makes her kind of stupid is if you go Blessed Shield and you design your comp to one-shot the enemy tank, Johanna if you can one-shot the enemy tank with a Blessed Shield, Johanna versus pretty much every other tank, you just win. Like, you just win the game because like they can't one-shot you as Johanna, but if you can one-shot them with Blessed Shield, then it's pretty much impossible to win the game. So, but she's pretty much perfect. I would play Johanna.
That's funny coming from you, but okay.
Yeah, I mean, she's basically perfect.
He's not wrong. It's just a little boring,
I agree. I hate playing Johanna.
And the other ones that are like pretty necessary right now, they're a bit harder. It's like Diablo and Mei, really good too. The combo is pretty hard to pull off. Some heroes are just straight up immune to it, which is pretty stupid because of how long the blizzard actually takes to pop. But so you have to learn kind of like, or if you're like playing against Lucio, the demon himself, it's like it's a miserable time.
We've had a couple raids come in, so just to the new viewers maybe dropping by, we're kind of just doing a Q&A thing here. Goon's kind of leading the conversation on tanking, but if you guys have any questions that you would like answered, please feel free to drop them in chat. I'm keeping track of them here, and we'll make sure to reach them sometime soon.
Oh, yeah. Feel free to ask whatever. Okay. People can tank butcher work. I mean, figure it out. Probably. I don't know.
One of us in here has done it before.
Yeah, I mean, technically
it's not me.
It can work, but it's not good. I don't know.
It's the other team 5-man wipes on boss.
Yeah, you remember that on the team of the Spider Queen, and you're playing against droplets. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, no, it's not good. Don't play Tank Butcher. He's too squishy.
Oh man. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about some of the other things that maybe people don't think about when they're playing tank, right? Okay, obviously you're playing Johanna, you're probably going around, you're clearing waves, you're blessed shielding and doing all this stuff. But let's say you're not playing her, right? And you're playing maybe something a little bit like we're playing Diablo or Muradin. What are some ways to increase the value, increase the power of a hero like Diablo or Muradin? So somebody that isn't Johanna, that isn't running around showing in vision all the time and things like that. How do you make Diablo feel really good, or Muradin, or those more one-dimensional tanks?
For starters, you ban Tychus. That's the first step. Then you can have fun playing as either of those two characters. It's mostly about recognizing, I guess, whether or not the enemy team can one-shot you as either Diablo or Muradin. That will change the way that you play a lot. So like Diablo has, you can build Diablo pretty much two different ways. You can either go the auto attack build and be more aggressive, which works against teams that are like low on damage who can't kill you. And then if they do have the option to one-shot you, you're usually just better off going the W build with Flame Breath. But they're like completely different playstyles. So like auto attack, you're like just getting in there and you're just trying to combo people and just chop wood with your auto attacks just to stay alive. And then with W build, you have to play a lot more safe. And just press W a bunch and play like more peel. Like with W build, you're basically just only using your EQ like in that order. So you're basically just you create like a space around your ranged. It's like a peeling playstyle. So if anyone walks up, you just only use EQ. If you ever QE into a lot of team comps with Diablo, you will just die. But again, a lot of it comes down to like recognizing who has better ranged DPS and whether or not you can get one shot.
Yeah, I think you kind of said it when you asked the question, Goon. I think, funny enough, it's actually like stay off the map. Like if the other team doesn't know where you are, then you're pretty much everywhere.
What do you mean by that?
Like if you're
dive into that a little bit.
If you're off the map, then the other team isn't allowed to step up aggressively because you could just be waiting in the bush to kill them, regardless of which build you're playing. The gank is still really good ganking tank. And then, yeah, I mean, if they don't know where you are, then it's just kind of, it's a controlling vision.
So you mean I'm Muradin, I probably shouldn't be slapping minions bottom lane trying to get XP
you shouldn't be slapping minions. You shouldn't be slapping merc champs. You can, if you go sledgehammer, you can maybe throw a Q at it to help speed it up. But
We've had a lot of questions from chat asking about, as the tank player, what kind of personality traits, attributes are needed. Like, do you need to be the leadership role, the shot caller as a tank player? And if you're a less experienced hot player and you can't do that, can you still tank?
I mean, I think it definitely helps a lot to be, because usually in most team comps, you're like the first CC, and you're also the one who kind of dictates where people are allowed to go on the map. Since you're usually out in the front, you need to be controlling like space and rotations, and if your team is not able to follow up on you, you don't really like exist. So I do think, and like if you're a ranged player, you can't like just run past the like your tank and run past your front line and go start a fight by yourself. It pretty much does all start from the tank as far as like engages and stuff. So I definitely think it helps quite a bit for the tank to be in charge of shot calling.
Yeah, because I think both of us kind of do on the teams we play on, Justin, right?
Mm-hmm.
You do a lot of the talking for the CCL team. I do most of it for the academy team as well. So it's not mandatory, but you do have to at least let your team know if you're looking, or I think it's best if the tank is in charge. But if somebody else is the shot caller, like there's pretty decent teams where the shot caller has not been the tank.
Yeah, I don't think you necessarily have to be the shot caller for like macro stuff as the tank. It helps, but I don't think you have to. When I first got into HGC for the first 6 months, Glarung was shot calling, and I'd been shot calling before that. But that let me focus on my own actual like tank play a lot more instead of like focusing so much on the map and the macro.
Mm-hmm.
I think the main thing though is that you have to be so like whether you do the macro shot calling or not is not as important as in team fights. You should be kind of you have to be vocal in team fights regardless. You need to be calling like what your cooldowns are so that your team can follow up and asking like well you shouldn't I guess you should get to a point where you shouldn't have to ask if you have follow up, but you should be telling your team like that yeah like Lupus said that you're like looking for something or like asking I guess if you have to like can we engage here, do we have cooldowns and stuff. So you have to be vocal for sure because your CC is usually the thing that starts the entire engagement.
Yeah.
DPS players, call your cooldowns, please.
Yeah.
It makes it so much easier. I can't tell you the amount of times I'm like, when we're playing the academy team, I'm like, App, do you have spells? And he's like, yeah, or like 2 seconds or whatever. But it happens all the time. I have to ask about it, and it slows down the pace a lot if I have to, because it's extra time that I have to like react to the information as well, and then find the engage.
Nothing feels worse than queuing in as Diablo and your teammates are just like, oh, I don't have anything. I don't even have mana. I can't do anything. Sorry, you're dead.
I QE this guy. Oh, he walks away, I guess. Unlucky.
Chat asks, Tyrael, more of a bruiser or a tank?
Defensive tank, I think. I only really play him on Battlefield, where I think Sanct is really good if you want to protect your race heroes.
I think he used to be kind of better as a tank. The things that are meta right now with like Mei and Diablo, even Johanna, I guess, he doesn't really like pressure the enemy front line because he has no CC, which all the other tanks you have like a tank matchup that's happening, regardless of the rest of the team comp, where you have like Murden and Diablo, where if the Murden stands in front of a wall and gets crushed by Diablo, he's losing the matchup. And there's like intricacies between the tanks, how they interact, and like they have their individual matchups. Like when ETC and Murden was meta for a while, that was a while back, but that was like the highest skill cap 1v1 for tank matchup that there was, because the Murden can stun the ETC as he's sliding, for example, and the Murden and the ETC can boop the Murden's jump and take his E. So that was probably like the highest skill expression time for tanks, but that type of matchup still exists. But if you have like a Diablo, for example, and you're playing against the Tyrael, you kind of just do whatever you want against the Tyrael, because the Tyrael doesn't have any CC, so the Tyrael does really nothing to the Diablo, and the Diablo just gets to do it like anything he wants. So I don't think Tyrael in general is too great of a like actual tank right now.
What are some of those higher skilled matchups that exist now in the meta?
Mei Diablo is a big one, because Mei almost forces you as Diablo to not go auto attack build just on her own, because she has the blinds, which kind of like completely stops that whole playstyle of just surviving through auto attacks. And also the Mei has Ice Cube, which she can use against the Diablo CC. That's probably like the most skill intensive matchup, is like both sides of that is like pretty even.
Not too long ago, it was like ETC Garrosh matchup.
Yeah.
Explain why for the viewers.
So ETC and Garrosh, I guess that was probably a bad example. Probably Garrosh Diablo is a better one. And it all surrounded like the cooldown on Garrosh's Indomitable, because you could throw Diablo, but if you didn't have Indom, Diablo would just queue you back into his team if you were the Garrosh. But if he had Indom, he could hit the Indomitable, and then you wasted your Q. So it became like, if you could keep track of the cooldown, do you have something else to queue to maybe? Like if you're fighting in a lane, is there a minion you can use as an escape if you got thrown? Stuff like that.
One big thing with matchups like that too is that like in isolation, like with like a Diablo Garrosh matchup, the Diablo kind of wins, but depending on the rest of the team, the matchup changes a lot. So like if the Garrosh team has like a Tychus and a Stukov, for example, then the matchup's absolutely terrible, because if you get thrown in ever, you just get one shot.
Dead on cooldown.
Yeah, so I guess like the main thing with like the way that the matchups work is you need to recognize when you get into the game like what your team does and what their team does. Basically, like, the biggest thing too is just like whether or not you can get one shot as the tank. Changes whether you can play aggressive or not.
All right.
Nice. Going back to something you guys have mentioned already. Let's talk about controlling space. I feel like there's a lot of resources in this game that we take into account. Mana, cooldown, there's camps, there's vision. But one thing I don't really hear too much conversation about it is space. Now, it's probably something that we all think about subconsciously or internally or whatever, but actually like talking about what real estate is, like how much value space is. Nobody ever talks about that. When you say controlling space, what do you mean exactly, and why is it important?
I mean, it kind of determines what you and the other team are allowed to do. So like where you're allowed to be on the map, where you're allowed to stand in team fights. And it's usually centered around, for tanks, it's centered around your cooldowns. Sometimes it's centered around like support cooldowns as well. Or anybody's cooldowns really. Like if Hanzo has jump still, that kind of changes where he can be. But like if Diablo hasn't pressed any of his buttons yet, then and the other team's like I don't know, Muradin or something, it kind of changes where Muradin's allowed to be, because if he gets, like Justin said a minute ago, if he gets wall stunned, then he's in trouble, and your team might be able to kill him.
Yeah.
It's basically like the zone of. It's like if you're Diablo, the space that you have is basically like the range on your Q ability. It's up, but then if you whether you use abilities or not, you kind of like, so if you're Diablo, your space that you create around you is basically like the range of your Q. But if you use your Q, suddenly your space is like limited to like the range on your E.
Mm-hmm.
So like sometimes not using the ability is just better. It's kind of like with like Mosh Pit or Stitch's Hook, where sometimes, unless it's like for sure, the threat of having the ability is more useful than the ability itself, because the main thing that allows you to like get an advantage and engage is that people used an ability already. So like if Muradin's stun is down, you have like a 8-second window or a 10-second window where you're like, all right, we have 10 seconds or 8 seconds or whatever it is, so this is our window to fight. So like sometimes just the threat of having the ability does more than using the ability itself, which is also why I hate Varian, because he has a 16-second window where he's useless for 16 seconds. So
He's a minion.
So a good team, as soon as taunt is down, if you don't get a kill, your whole team has to play passive for 16 seconds, because if the enemy team is good and they're capitalizing on that window, they have 16-second window to do whatever they want.
Right. So that Varian taunt and engages, and he's like, "All right, boys, we're out. We didn't get anything.
Yeah,
we're out.
run.
This shrine belongs to them. This objective belongs to them for the next 16 seconds." Now the enemy team controls that space. Now 16 seconds are back up. I have taunt again. I got to walk in through that bush or into that formation that they've made for themselves. And now, yeah. Space is very important, people. Space is very, very important.
I'm not sure if you had this on the list of stuff, but I think it might be good to go through kind of like what the tank's job is from like the start of the game.
Go for it.
Okay, so like something that you'll learn over time from playing tank, or that is like less obvious, is, and Lupus kind of brought it up earlier, with how like as a Diablo, or a Diablo or Muradin, like your ganks are really scary. So by showing where you are, and your wave clear is really bad, so realistically you're not contributing much to clearing the waves or anything like that. So the threat of you not showing anywhere is similar to like the threat of not using an ability, where you could be anywhere on the map pretty much. So like if you're showing all the people who are in the lanes fighting, like they're safe, right? Like they know that where you are. If you're not showing, then there's just a constant threat that you could be in basically like 3 lanes at once, which is really important. Another thing is the way that when there's the big team fights over the waves at the very start of the game, the goal is to kill the minion wave, usually, unless the enemy team like messes up and they can actually die. Because you want to be ahead on the rotations with your 4-man, and your job as the tank is like should not be, unless you're like a Johanna, should not be to actually focus on hitting the minions. It should be to kind of zone them away from the minions themselves so that they can't clear your wave. And then in those rotations, you want to either stay out of vision or try to just dismount them and like delay them as much as possible without dying. Yeah, I mean, the way that you play the rotations as a tank is much different than the way that you play them from the other positions.
Totally makes sense. You delay them, you slow them down, you harass, you just be annoying. Either at the very least, it slows down the rotation to get to the minion wave late, and you guys already clear that lane. You guys go do something else, take a camp, rotate to the other lane or whatever. Best case, they probably just like don't even rotate up. They just say, "Oh, this Murden's in this bush, or this whatever's in this bush. I'm just gonna just stay down here. Hey, can somebody else grab that soak for me? I can't. I'm dealing with top. I'm snowball effect."
I guess another thing, real quick, with like the level 1 fight. It's not always a fight, but or it's not, like Justin said, it's not necessarily supposed to be unless one team makes a pretty egregious mistake. So like there's tanks that are obviously really weak, level 1, Diablo, Varian immediately come to mind, where if the other team has any amount of damage, you can, if you step too far as Diablo level 1, you're just going to die instantly, and then that's really bad, obviously, because now you don't have a way to disrupt the rotations. It's hard for your team to rotate down to the next lane or to anywhere, and now you're behind in a little bit in XP. Stuff like that.
So level 1, what you're telling me, I'm not supposed to Pepega mid and just like fight before the waves even get there and do nothing and just waste cooldowns, and then you mean I'm not supposed to do that?
Only if you win the level 1.
Yeah. If you win the level 1, it's fine.
How do you win how do you know if you're going to win the level 1?
I look at the tank matchup usually. Most important part.
You gotta look at the team. You gotta look at the team comps, and you gotta go, "Hey guys, do we win level 1?" And then everyone says,
"If you can be slain, then it's not a fight you want to take."
Yeah, clear the waves, people. Clear the waves and then leave. Get your 10s. Get your 10. You want to fight? Get to level 10. That's when you can fight.
Scale up.
Yeah. What else? So you said. So let's talk about a little bit of like late game stuff with tanking. What are some things that you're looking for? Does the game change? Is anything added? How does your mindset? What are you thinking when you get like post 16? A couple objectives are down, buildings are down. There's a lot more open space. How are you navigating all that stuff?
It depends a lot on game state, probably.
So something more like in general, but it is more important at that point in the game, is just how you control vision. So in HOTS, you don't have like wards or anything like that to get vision. So you have to kind of look at the map and see where the enemy is and look at like what objectives are up. And then you want to kind of just track the enemy team. Certain tanks are a lot better at that than others. Like Muradin is really good at that because he has a jump and he's tanky, so he can get out. Whereas like Diablo, you have to be much more careful. You aren't able to like go into the enemy team and be like, "Yep, they're doing their camp," because like you'll die. Whereas like a Muradin, you can kind of like spy on them and like just like give them like the threat that you could invade, which is still a thing. But something that I mean, I guess I still do this, but something that I started to do a lot is I would try to keep track of the enemy tank, and I would, if I hadn't seen him in a while, like I'd be positioning myself basically in like the most aggressive place I could be without getting picked and die. And then you're trying to kind of like tell your team they can only be from like here to here on the map. That's something that I do a lot, is because I'm trying to track them, and I'll be like, okay, well, I last saw him going this way, so and then I'll move into like a new position in fog, and I can tell my team with pretty good confidence that they have to be within this area. Like they can only be like mid and top, like because I'm watching the rotation to bottom, for example. So I could say like, okay, they can only be by their knights or here. But you want to keep track of the enemy tank.
If only there was a hero in the game that could give you free information on where the enemy tank was all the time without getting hurt or anything.
Yeah, Chromie's weird that way.
Chromie, Medivh.
I thought you were talking about Abathur.
Oh, Avatar. There you go.
Okay.
Oh man.
Okay, we need to have another look. Heroes that can do that. Too many.
Mm.
Okay, so we have a few questions stacking up here. We'll just go with the one that came in the longest ago, asking if you could design your own tank, and if you could do that, what kit would you want on your QWE?
I just want Imperius to have tank stats instead of bruiser stats. I think his kit's really fun. But
What would need to change for Imperius to?
they need to shift some of the damage into HP and like defensive capabilities. Like I don't know, the last line of nerfs was like completely unnecessary in my opinion. But like I think he's almost sub 40% win rate hero now. He's really, really bad. As opposed to being like a 55% win rate hero when his numbers were absurd.
Hi.
I want a baby pit lord hero. A pit kid, if you will. And I want I would have, so they kind of have it now with Hogger with his Q, but I wanted something like that in a tank. I wanted to be able to just thwomp my enemies, just swat them into a wall. Which I guess Hogger kind of does it, but it's not as satisfying as I'd hoped it would be. Kind of like Urel Hammer. I'd like to be able to just like slap them away, like a Stukov slap, and crush them into the wall and have it stun. I'd like something like that on a tank.
That'd be sick.
And maybe something like this would be really OP, but something like almost like a whip pull sort of thing, where like a lasso sort of thing, where you kind of like yoink them, and the hitbox is like a, I don't know, like an L shape, like a hook sort of thing, like a Stitches hook, but more of like a, you throw it out there and like reel them in, like you scoop them up. I'd like something like that. I think that would be interesting.
Interesting.
The whole kit.
Yeah, just design a tank on the fly right now. Make sure it's balanced,
Yeah.
and we'll move on to the next question.
I get we get the whole talent tree as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. He has protect baseline at on his one key.
I don't like that one very much.
People are asking about Uther and what makes him a good tank. Is he still a good tank right now?
I kind of go ahead. You guys do your thing, and then I'll jump in at the end.
It's like Justin said, when you're playing Uther tank, you're not necessarily the tank because your only engage is walking at the other team, which is pretty bad, and lots of like your engage is ruined if you get dismounted. So you're more, because if you're Uther tank, it's good if you're usually like your ranged hero can be a little more, or your bruiser can be a little more frontliney and start the fights for you, and then you just save them, and then when they get gone on, then you can use your stuns, but you can still like sit in bushes and dismount and do all that other ward stuff that tanks do.
Go ahead.
Okay, so it's Uther tank is sort of similar to how I described like ETC having two different playstyles. So under normal circumstances, if the enemy team comp is like really good, you're usually there to enable someone with Divine Shield and then turn them into a tank by either like just like cleansing them and counter engaging when you heal with the armor, or giving them armor at 7. But the main reason I think that Uther is like even was relevant at all, or still is as like a tank, is because if you compare his lockdown to all the other tanks' lockdown, Uther actually has better CC than every other tank in the entire game for single target. With Benediction, you have 3.75 seconds of stun with Benediction with your E with Divine Storm, which is basically 4 seconds of stun. It's like mosh pitting one person, which if you compare that to literally every other tank in the game, it's just like not even close. So that's like the main thing. It's like that, and then you can just like, or you can just turn people into tanks basically with double support.
And what are some ideal situations where you'd want to run Uther as a tank?
If he's up.
True. If he is available to be drafted, you should probably draft him.
Yeah, he's pretty OP right now.
The thing with Uther, I mean, he can fit into any type of play style you want to play, right? You can play some defensive stuff and just let the enemy team engage into you. Sure. You can run double support with him because his armor and his healing, it works so well with other healing in the game. He's a very flexible hero. So he's going to work in multitude of scenarios for sure. I am of the do not run Uther as a main tank, but that's because I'm an Uther, stan. I like he's my favorite hero in the game. I will run solo Uther, so don't stop picking tank Uther. It's not good. Don't do it. I just want to play the hero.
Make your tank player pick Stukov or something.
If you're looking for stuff, if you're just running Papega Factory at the enemy team as Uther and you're not winning, like, oh, but I thought this was good. It's probably because you're just giving it to them for free. Right? You're Uther running in the garage into a garage comp that can't engage on you or something. You're getting thrown into the back line, just getting one shot. Like, think about what you're doing. Don't just. You can't run Uther like Murd. You can't just be running around on Braxis on their side of the map in the bush. I'm going to disrupt this rotation back here. It doesn't work that way.
Would you say you can't redline him?
You cannot redline
Okay,
Uther.
let's talk about that because someone in chat keeps asking, "What's redline? What's redline?" Get them to explain.
It's like it's a little bit of an inside joke. Goon and I were coaching this team one time. I'm not going to call anybody out. But it was pretty funny because they were saying that they like to play Johanna, and then they were also saying that every time they were on Johanna, they were like the last one to die, and their whole team was dead all the time. And then they used their tank player used the phrase, "I like to redline Johanna," which we took that to mean he just sprints at them and doesn't stop until either his team dies or the entire other team is dead. And which is not ideal gameplay, but it's pretty funny.
Yeah, when you're tanking, you need to take in consideration what your job is in relation. Like, okay, I need to protect my team. Depending on what your composition is, I got a low mobility team. I got this Jaina back here, or this Kel, or whatever it is back here. Maybe I shouldn't just be running into their team. I press, because this is what happens. Everyone presses D, walks forward, presses W, presses E, presses Q, and then they see the enemy team just walk by you. And then your entire team is dead. Like, think about what you're doing. Think about what your role is there. Now, if you have a more aggressive composition, you got some people that are going to go in with you. Okay, cool. Push all your buttons. That's the point of the composition. You run in, you all push your buttons, you smash your faces against the keyboard, and hope you come out on top with more HP bars. But yeah. Anyways.
Next question we had kind of pop in on chat. Misha as main tank. Don't know how they want to pose it as a question, but just want to throw it out there.
I've tested it 3 times and I lost every single time. It felt really bad as well. So,
yeah,
I don't know if you've tried it.
Yeah, I've tried it. I don't think it's very good. It's probably still better than picking ETC because he's just got the same thing. But ETC is really not very good right now. It's probably just bad. I don't know. As much as I'd like it to be good, you could maybe do it if you had like your offlaner playing another like really tanky character, like maybe like Diva or something. You could maybe make it work, but the only way it would be probably viable would be if you were like just a Rexar god and you can micro the bear well enough to body block people consistently. I'm not that good at Rexar, so
No, that's
I
way too
haven't
hard.
tried it. But yeah, it would be best to avoid it unless you're like a Rexar only.
Yeah. For me, it would depend on what the composition is doing. Okay, like for example, we saw this in CCL. 30K was running the Rexar Imperious style composition, right? At the end of the day, the Imperious was the main tank. However, they used Misha Stun as a reliable form of engage and set up the Imperious Spear. Like that's what it was. He wasn't just raw spearing in. It was the bear would come, stun everybody. That was the initiation, and then Imperious would go in and then tank everything else. After that, was Misha the main tank there? No, but it
Kind
definitely.
of,
I guess. I
sort of,
guess.
but no. Yeah,
To me, it augmented what the main tank was doing. For me.
Tank's like I mean, it's a role, not necessarily a certain set of heroes.
Right. True, but yeah. Is it some alternate form of engage? Sure. Is that your main tank? Probably not.
that is a good point though too. In that the Imperious was the main tank, but in the comp he wasn't actually the first CC. The Misha offlane was the first CC, and that's something that's important to recognize is whether you should be starting the fights or if you should be waiting to follow up on someone else starting the fights. Because like if
Yeah.
Imperious is in that comp and he's just trying to hit every Q before the Misha stuns, then he's trolling and they're gonna lose. And when we played against it, that was actually, I mean, that's pretty much how you decided when you went in or not, would be if Imperious wasted his Q without getting the Misha stun first.
Mm-hmm.
So
If Misha was
important to
around
recognize
at all. I think that was a four-man Rexar, by the way. I think it was a Hazu Rexar, and then it was
Yeah.
something else. I don't remember. But I remember Hazu playing the Rexar in the 4-man, and it's just like, okay, this is kind of toxic, like
It is pretty obnoxious.
it's
I'll say.
obnoxious. Yeah, it definitely is for sure.
Can we circle back around to earlier we were talking about Uther and you mentioned mounting up to run at them, and a couple people in chat were like, wait, you mount and run at them as the tank? And it kind of blew their mind a little bit. So can you just talk about, I know there's some heroes like Uther or Garrosh, if you're mounted, you can get a little bit of a rush at them. Can you just explain how that can work in your favor as a tank?
I mean, if you're on mount, you're 30% faster than a hero who's not mounted, which, assuming it's kind of like I want to use like a insult, but it's like a check on the other team's ranged players most of the time as to whether or not they'll figure out they have to dismount you. And if they don't dismount you, then their tank usually dies or someone dies. But
Yeah, since mount doesn't really have a cooldown, that is one thing that if you haven't played the game a lot, or like that should get in the habit of doing, is pretty much any time that you're not immediately going to get dismounted, you should try to be on your mount, unless you're just like especially as the tank, because you're not there to like auto attack the whole time and stuff like that. Like you're not constantly in combat, so pretty much whenever you have the chance to, you do want to be mounted, because
on mount in a bush.
Really nice.
I think just mounting in general is something that a lot of players could do more often, because even if you're just sitting back waiting for your minion wave to come, you're mounted up, then you have that extra speed boost to dodge skill shots as well. Even if you're DPS or tank, doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Or if you suddenly decide you have to leave and go somewhere else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you don't have to waste the channel time. You can just be going.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, when I was first learning the game back in the beta and all that way back in the day, Diablo was like one of the first tanks I got into. And this is when Diablo was one of those. You had to he charged and then he hit the target and then the target went flying into the wall. He didn't follow.
I loved that. That was fun.
Yeah, he
still does that.
He still does
that. Yeah.
He still does that. Yeah.
Except now it's random instead of before. It was like some stupid condition. I don't remember what it was, but there was like some dumb condition where it would happen.
I thought it was. I think I remember them saying it was like a bug that they finally fixed after like a couple of years. I don't remember. Anyway,
he would send siege giants off the map, and then you couldn't cap the camp for the rest of the game.
Yeah, there you go. Anyways, for me, it's like, okay, I see that. I charge, they go flying. One of the ways I learned tanking and using Diablo was like, okay, I need to be mounted up and I need to run at them and I need to E them and then cue them into my team. That was how I learned, or like how I started like figuring it out or whatever for me. So I would just sit in bushes, mounted up, and some Jaina would come walking out into the lane, and I'm like, here I am. I'm this Diablo hauling ass at you on my pleb horse mount. I flip you. I see them use their cooldowns. Free flip, boom, into the wall or into my team, dead. So yeah, use mounting, especially with heroes that have low mobility, low engage, like Garrosh. You know, Garrosh relies on his Q, and then he has to walk up and grab you. Well, what if he just was running at you on his crab mount? You know what I mean? And just presses E on you, flips you over, same thing. But yeah, anyways.
Another question we had from chat is discussion about body blocking, how that works, when it's important to do it.
I mean, I guess I want to say just like if the situation looks good for it, but that's not super helpful. I guess if you're just waiting for like a second or two for another cooldown to come, it'll buy your DPS time to keep hitting the hero that you're trying to kill, and stop people from getting back into their gate as long as there's like no threat of you getting like flipped into the gate as well. If there's like a Garrosh or Diablo, they can pull you over the wall. But it's easier on like big hitbox heroes to do it to other big hitbox heroes. So
you also have to judge whether or not the lack of your own damage is going to be worth it, because you can't body block while auto attacking.
Yeah.
So you have to take into consideration if you have follow up, if it's more important for you to damage yourself than it is for you to body block. You have to take into consideration whether you're going to die for body blocking. And then it does become most important usually, like Lupus said, like on gates, so people can't get into gates. And it's something that you just have to practice a lot.
It's hard.
It's about predicting just like the enemy's movements. If you often get into awkward encounters in the hallway when you're walking in the same direction as someone else, or the opposite direction as someone else, then you'll be really good at it. It'll come naturally then. You can even do it. It sounds kind of stupid because it's against a bot, but you can even do it in try mode against Arthas bot. I've body blocked him plenty of times for whatever reason.
He hates when you do that.
Yeah, he doesn't like that at all. It's okay practice still.
I don't know, at least from like a control, I like to just hold down right click when I try and do it, so that I'm just like, because that just changes where your hero's gonna go without like accidentally clicking on a gate or something.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's what you do, Justin, or if you spam right click to do it.
I think I'm usually doing it the same way. Yeah, I think I usually hold down.
All right.
Because it just fixes any potential mistakes you might make.
Just something you have to practice a lot.
Yeah, there you go. Little
and if you
tip.
didn't know, now you know. You can hold down right click and move your character around. And
just drag it around.
Yeah.
Diva would be a good one to practice with too.
Because she's really good. She's like the god at that, because she gets to hit while she does it.
Next question is, how do we make Mal'Ganis work?
We don't.
If the other team forgot to pick any stuns, then you can probably pick him.
I wanted him to be good, but I think he's like just completely unplayable. I don't know. I'm pretty sure Lauber disagrees, but I mean, I don't think it's good. I don't know. I'd like him to be good, but I just don't think he does enough for, like, I just don't think he provides enough. Like his CC is really weak.
Yeah, he's like Garrosh, but not like, he doesn't have the displacement power. It's like his engage is walking up. He has to be like in the team already. We'll say his scaling is pretty good in my opinion, but like other than that,
he like in team fights he does, like, he's not the first CC. He does like what the offlaner would do or should do, but he has no wave clear, so he just like doesn't really function because of that.
Yeah,
and neither of his ultimates have CC, so they're also kind of just doesn't help.
I find that like if the enemy team kind of botched their engage, or they're not one shot, like they're not operating the way they should be, he then thrives. They use all their cooldowns, and he's like, okay, cool, now I get to push my buttons, and then my team maybe will kill somebody on your team, and if not, it just kind of just resets back and forth until somebody just Papegas just enough to come out on top.
the main thing is that like as a tank, you need to have threat via either having like CC, like hard CC, or damage. Like Muradin kind of does both. Like Muradin can go Avatar and he can jump in the backline, and he actually becomes a damage threat at like level 13, where he's just he is enough damage on his own that you can't ignore him. Mal'Ganis damage is low enough that I think the secret to beating Mal'Ganis is you just ignore him. You literally like just pretty much pretend he doesn't exist. Like if you just don't hit him ever, like he's not going to kill your team.
All right, one of the other questions that popped up is, I'm going to cover this a little bit, but they say I find it tough to know where to be on the map, what fights to choose as a tank and when. So I guess maybe what are you looking for when you're thinking of taking an engage? What are things like maybe like a checklist you're mentally going through before you go for that engage?
I mean, there's a lot. What like big cooldowns your team has and the enemy team has is probably the first thing. Is like if you have ultimates, if you need ultimates. The main thing is that I guess also like even more important than that is like, do we have the numbers advantage? Do you have like a talent advantage? And then you work down to like smaller things like, do you have your CC? Does your ranged have its follow up? Does your support have like follow up CC available? And you kind of like work your way from the big picture to the small picture in that sense.
Where can the opponent possibly be? Then you look at the map. Where are the lanes at? How are the lanes set up? Are all the minions on your side of the map? If they're on your side of the map, then and you don't see them, they're probably lurking somewhere trying to catch you to go clear those minions. Maybe there's camps that are coming up. Maybe the objective is spawning, or maybe the objective isn't spawned yet, but you know where it's going to be because a lot of the maps will tell you where the objective is going to be, right? So maybe they're around there. Maybe they're setting up. Maybe, you know, I've got a low HP 4. Maybe they're going to rotate and get that. There's a lot of things on the map that can kind of give you some context clues as to where the opponent might be. And I mean, you can't assume that they're going to be there all the time because let's be real, we've all played some games and we're like, why is this guy here? Like, why are you here? What is the purpose of you being here? There's really no reason for you to be here. But yeah,
Or if they're not there.
Or if they're not there, you're like, why aren't they here? What's going on?
They should be. Now I get this for free. Thank
Yeah,
you.
exactly. So just looking at all those things, and that's a lot of information that you have to process in real time, and getting better at that just it requires. I don't want to say just play more games, but like consciously thinking about those things as you play those games, and you make those decisions, you analyze that information at level 1 right out the gate. You know, I see 4 mid here. Oh, look at that, they're murky, or their Sylvanas is cheesing the bot tower. Cool, this is a 5v4, we can look for something here. Or maybe, you know, whatever the case, you start making the decisions.
With that, there's something that I noticed I used to do a lot is when I was like new to shot. Well, I guess I was just new to the game in general, I guess. I was playing the game, like the late game from like 13 to 16 on. I wouldn't even be like looking at my character. I would just be like playing on the mini map. And I'd just be like looking at the mini map, running around, going to like the places to get vision. And like I remember I'd had times where I literally had a range character just like walk into me, and I'm like didn't even like notice right away because I'm just staring at the mini map trying to like be in the right place. So that's something that you have to like get used to. But like the macro in HOTS especially is like infinitely more important than the micro stuff. Just being in the right place is more important than your mechanics in a fight.
All right. Another question from Chad is, and we kind of talked about, you know, don't need to play an actual tank that's in the tank role in the game. It can be other things as well. But what about running something like a 3 bruiser comp? Is that something you can do instead of just taking a tank?
No, Goon has a particular attraction to those kind of comps. Right now, ACA runs that like all the time when they're playing with their core 5. They play 3 bruisers. I think they think like the main aspect of it is the power that Hogger has right now.
Mm-hmm.
And because he makes up for a lot of stuff that you would maybe lose out on, and he brings engage and CC.
I think the main issue with those types of comps, and the reason that I don't really run them, we ran them a little bit at the start of the season in CCL, and then we stopped doing it, is because, so there's like two things. The main one thing is, if you don't have anyone who's like an actual tank, if the enemy team has the ability to just 100 to 0 any one of those three, if they're coordinated, then you just start every fight with a 4v5 basically. And the only way that it works then is if you have so much like hard engage that you're all going in at the same time and they can't like isolate one of you, which is pretty hard to do. The other thing, which is much worse for like draft in general, is if you have 3 bruisers instead of a tank, then you have most likely 1 ranged and 1 support. The 3 bruisers are going to be overall still kind of light on damage relative to just having like another ranged. So triple bruiser comp would pretty much on paper just automatically lose to double support pretty much every single time. So that's like the main thing, is just the just from like a draft perspective, triple melee just loses to double support. So it kind of makes it irrelevant unless you can know for sure that the enemy team's not going to double support.
And there's heroes that just destroy it too, like Malthael, Mephisto come to mind.
I think Decker Kane is just poops on those guys. Does those kinds of comps with his roots and reduced healing and all that stuff. Yeah.
Chat's asking if you can explain a little bit more about why 3 bruisers would lose to 2 supports. And does it have to be a specific 2 supports? Could it be like a Lucio Abathur?
I guess it kind of depends on the other stuff, but if you have like a good double support that functions, I could explain like how double support works, but it's kind of long, so I probably shouldn't. But there's like combinations of double support that are like mandatory for double support. You need like, I'll really quickly, I guess, like you need like your sustain healer, which there's a ton of, like Malfurion or almost all of them, like Stukov, Malfurion, Oriel, which provides like the sustain heal, and then you need the preventing one shot sort of thing from the other one, which is like just like Brightwing, Uther, for example. Stukov can kind of do it. So if you have like a functioning double support like that, that has both parts, that should just always be the triple bruiser, because you would just kind of wear them out. It should be too hard for a triple bruiser comp because their damage isn't going to be super high, the single ranged. Even though they don't have a tank, it's still so much less damage that like the burden of execution is entirely on the triple melee comp, because they have to get their engage perfect, and if they don't kill someone right away, they automatically lose the sustained fight because the double support is just going to heal forever. And so you're on a timer basically, and you have to execute perfectly, and if you don't, then you just lose over time. And it's a lot easier to just not die to the enemy team than it is to perfectly execute a one shot on the enemy team, especially when they have double support.
All right. Well, I don't have any other questions here from Chad. Is there anything you guys would like to kind of wrap up, and any last thoughts on tanking in general?
Yeah, go for it, Zach.
I guess I would just say, since I know it's primarily for the people playing in Girls Gank Squad, I would just encourage everyone, don't be afraid to do it. You're like, if you make mistakes, it's fine. It's for fun. You're not playing for, big money or whatever. So just don't worry about mistakes. Just take the stuff that we've kind of talked about today and just think about it when you're playing. I know it's hard because you also need to focus. If you don't play a lot of tanks, you have to focus mechanically on like playing your hero as well, and then all the other stuff that you have to do. But tanks are probably mechanically the easiest role in the game, but the theory about what you're supposed to be doing at any given time is the hardest out of any role, in my opinion. Which is why we don't see a lot of there's not a lot of tank players out there, and we see that right now with CCL free agents. There's a huge gap in the quality of tank players right now in the free agent pool.
Luminaire asks how much of tanking is just being fearless about taking risks and getting killed.
Justin knows a lot about that one.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is a Justin question for sure.
All right, so you can't be a KDA player if you play tank. my favorite thing ever is when the enemy team focuses me and I die, and we trade like 1 for 5 or 1 for 4 or something. That means that you did a good job. You can't be afraid to die while playing tank, but you can't die for no reason. Tank is weird because it's not as straightforward. Like, you don't get as much positive reinforcement as you do if you're playing ranged and you're doing DPS and like kiting and not dying and stuff. Like, you instantly see the rewards from that. It's obvious. Like, you hit them, they die, so you get like positive reinforcement from that. But the way that you get value as a tank is a lot more like obscure, so it's a little bit less obvious. In general, you're like creating space for your team by just like having a threat, like a zone of threat that doesn't let your team get hit while their team can be hit. You can like just like waste their time, which if I'm Muradin and I walk into the enemy team while my team's rotating bottom, so say the teams fight over mid, you both clear the mid waves, but then I'm standing there dancing as Muradin, and the enemy team just all goes on me and starts hitting me, but my team already goes bottom and starts clearing the bot wave. If I jump away and I live, and I'm Muradin and I'm healing myself with my passive, so I'm not using any resources for that, that's a huge win for me because I slowed down them from getting to bot wave, which gives my entire team priority everywhere. So things like that, it's not as obvious that you're doing something useful because you're not like hitting them or whatever, but you're wasting their time. And it's kind of the same thing with dying in team fights. Like, if they go out of their way to kill you when you're playing like positioning properly, assuming that your team is like equal skill with their team, and you die, but like you take even 2 people with you from their team, then you did a good job. So it's a little bit less obvious when you're getting value, but you just get value in different ways. So you shouldn't be afraid to die if it means that your team is going to trade up for it.
Yeah. I mean, find that balance. Don't just run it down, and I hope
Yeah.
your team, that your team cleans up for you. But no, that's a good point there that I was going to bring up. Is you don't it doesn't, it's not as apparent, right? Like you said, DPS deal damage, kill tank. Like
Right. The game doesn't tell you, good job, you wasted 90 seconds of the other team's time. Them chasing you around or whatever.
So huge.
Or you sniffed out 7 ganks, stuff like that.
Yeah, tank's
Game
also
doesn't
the
tell you that.
reason. Oh, it's the reason that they didn't have the role-based matchmaking thing where you got like, because Blizzard talked to us about this. Like, we had like a summit with them at some point. HGC did, and they were pushing for trying to have like a stat tracking thing that would give you like more MMR or something like that based on like how your stats were. And I had to like, not just me, but like the tanks had to explain to like the Blizzard developers that that's not how tank works, that they would be basically rewarding the Muradin who's just like stunning people off cooldown doing nothing else over like the actual good tanking, which in the same situation could be you're just standing in a brush for like 30 seconds. That could be infinitely more useful to your team than just running around stunning people on cooldown. Because it's not the same. It's not, you can't quantify it in the same way as you can quantify like a DPS. Just doing more damage is good job, you did more damage. Because what you do is a lot, I don't know, it's a lot different. There's less obvious reward for what you're doing.
100%. That's why I like supports too. I think before I feel like supports used to be more cerebral, but like now it's just press Z, you healed, But
congratulations,
whatever.
you used your 20-second global ancestral.
Yeah.
Well done.
But yeah, definitely go out there, play the games, play with some friends, and just talk about what you guys want to be doing. Hey, we want to cut off this rotation. Hey, just start talking to each other and setting up those things, those little things that we talked about today in your game. Follow up CC, follow up damage, peeling, et cetera, et cetera. But just get those games in. There's something to be said for strong tank players for sure, and you don't get good overnight. It's definitely one of the hardest roles to learn, to master, to understand. But if you can do that, it'll take. I honestly, it'll take your gameplay to another level, because now you'll understand things like draft a little bit better. Matchup.
You'll learn stuff about other roles too.
Yeah.
As a tank, you have to consider pretty much all 5 heroes the other team has, unless they have like a weird one or something, like like a hero you don't interact with a whole lot, like the Abath or Medivh or whatever. That's the only, or not Medivh, sorry, Vikings. Definitely interact with Medivh when he messes up everything you try and do the entire game.
Yeah, exactly. But get those games in, but more importantly, think about what's happening in those games. Um, just sending 500 Storm League games, a season, just to do it doesn't. You don't learn anything from that, other than you got a lot of time on your hands.
You definitely will learn more playing with like friends or people that you're actually like communicating with, working as a team, than you will in Storm League.
I think players in GGS already have like a bit of an advantage for that in that regard, because you're playing that whole series every week at least, and you're 5 people in voice chat.
Yeah, don't be afraid to go for it.
It just makes it easier. I think you were about to say like don't be afraid to give it a try.
Give it a try, yeah, and like in comms, don't be afraid to speak up. That's your job at the end of the day. A lot of that isn't like Justin was saying. You can't quantify that. Speak up, say things. A quiet tank is a dying tank. A quiet team is a dying team.
True.
So speak.
Well, I think this is a good spot to wrap it up here. I've been talking for a little over an hour and 15 minutes now. I just wanted to say I hope that some of the ladies from Girls Gang Squad took a little bit out of this and will consider tanking. I know, like Goon said, it's going to take practice. You're not going to be able to do it overnight, and it can be really frustrating. And I know for myself, anytime I step into the role, I feel like if we end up with a loss, it ends up being on my shoulders. But try it out anyways. That's not what everybody else is thinking, especially in Girls Gang Squad. There's not many people that want to tank, so if you're willing to step into that role, even if you're going to be a little bit weaker on it from other roles that you do play, it's not a bad idea to do it, and I really encourage you to try it out. To wrap things up, let's just go through, let people know where they can find you. You stream, your Twitch, Twitter, wherever, and we'll make sure that we can send them your way as well. So let's just start with Goon.
Yeah, y'all can find me on Twitter at GOONGGWP. Follow me there. I post stuff sometimes. On Twitch, twitch.tv/GOONGGWP. I stream there sometimes. I play HOTS. If I'm not playing HOTS, I'm playing, my other games, shooters and things like that. That's usually what I like to play these days. Give us all a follow. Give Wild Heart Esports a follow on Twitter, Wild Heart Esports as well. Go check us out. We're gearing up for season 2 of CCL. Should be a good time.
All right, Lupus, what about you?
Lupus Hots on Twitch and Twitter. I don't stream a whole lot anymore. The only thing really to stream. My team doesn't. We decided collectively not to stream scrims, or else I would do that. But I haven't been having a whole lot of fun with Storm League, to be honest. So I've been playing other stuff. And I will lastly say, if you aren't already and you want to message me or Justin about anything we talked about today, the Wild Heart Discord. I can't put a link in.
Oh, but, I'll get it for you. Hang on, let me permit
got
you.
him.
Darn it, dude. Just gonna plug the Wild Heart Discord.
There you go. Not. You have 120 seconds.
Okay, there you go. Join that. You can find me and Justin in there, or Goon, any of us. Message in the HOTS chat in there.
Yeah, I highly recommend going to join that Discord, because they're all wonderful people and will help you out and point you in the right directions if you have any questions about literally anything to do with HOTS. So, last but not least, Justin, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitch and Twitter at /thisjusting. That's my tag on both. Might stream at some point eventually, but kind of inconsistent. Been playing some other games, doing some other stuff, but at some point I might stream on there.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it. And I'm sure that a lot of people took something from this class. So thanks for taking the time to help GGs out. In terms of what's going on next week with my stream, guys, I am kind of keeping my schedule open for casts, and I'm usually picking them up the day of. So the only streams that are for sure going to be happening are the Friday night GGs, and Saturday next week will also be canceled for the Games for Girls Gang Squad, but Friday night's on. So I'll for sure see you on Friday, maybe a little bit throughout the week to do some casts here or there for NGS and stuff. But other than that, just make sure you join my Discord, follow me on Twitter, because I usually update there what's going on. And again, thanks guys for joining. Hope to talk to you guys again soon.
Yeah, that was fun. Thanks for having. Thanks for having us.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.